Hi, I am Fritz, and if you are new here, welcome. I must admit, I am someone with anger issues. And if you're someone who has known me for a while now, you might think, really? Because anger is an emotion that was very unfamiliar to me, right? And in this video, I'm going to talk about emotions and, you know, how we identify ourselves based on the emotions we feel and how to shift that because emotions are just emotions, right? It's really powerful when you can change your frame of mind, you can change your perception around emotions to not make them to be good emotions or bad emotions, to just leave the emotions as they are. Emotions are, it is what it is, right? And when we are able to do that and we can recognize these emotions within us and not allow it to really affect who we are as a person and overly associate ourselves with certain emotions as if they were our personality type, then that can really help us with our personal growth, our personal development, and our ability to just freely express any emotion without the need to numb them and without any shame or judgment, so that we can just feel comfortable with being ourselves, be safe within it to be ourselves, and be unapologetically ourselves when we put ourselves out there, when we introduce ourselves and make connections towards other people, when we talk to our clients, we can just be ourselves, because wouldn't that be a more fulfilling interactions? Wouldn't that be more fulfilling in general, to know that you're not hiding from yourself or anybody else because you're just allowing all your emotions to flow, even emotions that most people perceive as bad, such as anger. And today I'm going to talk to you specifically about my personal experience with anger and how I've shifted that and allowed myself to freely express it in a healthy way. And this is still in the middle of transformation, but still, I wanted to share this with you because I know that this will truly help. Because I've talked to several women already who who also have resistance with fully allowing themselves to feel this anger, and definitely my thoughts on that. So let's begin. So I would say that I'm someone with a pretty short temper, right? Nothing, like, I get irritated very easily, which oftentimes turns into anger, right? And I've noticed this as a young age, actually. I found myself just bottling my anger up. And then I do believe that the experiences that I have had with regards to anger from my childhood has really affected the ability of my ability to fully express it now. And so, when I was younger, I kind of, when you are young, you don't really know how to control your emotions that much, and we were not really taught to control our emotions or know what to do with them, right? Emotional regulation, unfortunately, especially when I grew up, wasn't really taught in the school curriculum, right, as it should be. And so having all like that, just that tendency to bottle anger up, and noticing some of my family members who also had short tempers, and not knowing how to deal with it healthily, affected obviously how I expressed it. So even though I had this short temper and I would get angry and I would have outbursts, this was something obviously that I didn't really know what to do. And then in my 20s, I became a nurse, right? And nursing is a very, very stressful profession. And most of my career, 5 out of the 10 years, was in emergency medicine. Two of them were in regular acute internal medicine, and the last three were in home and community care, working for the government. And so within that experience, especially when I was in the emergency department, a lot of things pissed me off, right? um, it was a very fulfilling experience, of course, but also at the same time, a lot of things angered me, from things like, nursing staff not being able to receive the appreciation that they deserved, the injustice out of all the things, of course, the trauma that you experience being in an emergency department where you do experience trauma full on. And all of those things really, made me angry, right? Rightfully so, validly so. Right. But when you're in an environment like that, where there was minimal support in terms of, like debriefing, and just regular mental health support for the staff, it was difficult to learn how to express it and have an outlet. And at that time, personal development was something that was not on my radar as well, right? So I didn't know any of these things, didn't know much about meditation. I kind of knew about it. I knew about yoga back then, but it didn't really click back then. And so since starting a business, it was something that I started working on and started really discovering for myself the past 6 or so months. After, separating with my husband, I felt obviously a lot of grief, and with that grief comes anger, right? And that was really the first time when I felt anger to its entirety, to its intenseness, because I allowed myself to feel it, right? I allowed myself to feel the anger. And it was just so unfamiliar. It's kind of like when you start skating for the first time, the first time you learned how to skate, you're kind of just like you don't know how to move your body. It's kind of like you forget how to stand, and you just don't know what to do with it. It was kind of that feeling of that unfamiliarity, right? The newness of like not knowing what to do with myself with that feeling. And so what has really helped me was that just allowing it to come. Of course, and there's healthy ways of doing it and unhealthy ways of doing it, right? I was never the type of person who would lash out at people. If anything, all of that anger was really more directed to myself, right? We all know a lot of people who just outwardly express their anger, and I do believe that's part of the reason too why I didn't want to do that. Didn't want to become that person. So instead of like looking for a better outlet, instead of like, that anger, just kind of, I faced it towards me, and I was angry with me all the time. I was frustrated all the time. I beat myself up. And that was, one of the things that I really had to work on. And of course, my body fought with that, right? If you are angry with yourself and you beat yourself up, internally, that conflict is something that you just don't want to, like, you just don't want to have that, like, internally, that part of you that just wants to be seen or heard. Being faced with anger is going to react a certain way, right? It's not going to trust you anymore because it's one of these things where you're beating a dead horse up. That's what I was doing to myself internally, because I just didn't have that outlet. So what really changed the game was, one of the most important things was receiving subconscious rewiring sessions, because when we don't fully allow ourselves to express these emotions, it comes out in certain ways. It comes out physically in our bodies. And for me, the times when I bottled up my anger was when eczema in my finger would pop up, right? I knew that I was bottling up anger because it was a very, very specific area in my finger where I got that eczema. Nowhere else in my body, nowhere else, just like the psychosomatic symptom of anger. That where my body was just telling me to pay attention, release these emotions, because I am paying for it via a skin condition, which is, very interesting. That's a whole different topic for a different video. But that how what my body reacted to the bottled up anger. And so what really truly helped me, because inside our subconscious rewiring session, what I had realized after processing was the fact that I didn't want to be seen, or I didn't want to claim someone who, like, I didn't want to claim as my person. I didn't want to claim anger as part of my personality trait. I didn't want to be an angry person. I didn't want to be considered as someone who was short-tempered, right? Rightfully so, because, it's not a very healthy way to just express anger. Those were just part of my belief system. And so because of this, it's changed the way. Because of this, I bottled it up because I didn't want to be associated with anger. I had a negative or bad connotation as to what anger was. So when I shifted that belief of, well, anger is neither good or bad, anger is just an emotion that needs to be felt, just like sadness, right? Just like grief, it also needs to be felt just like any other emotion. And when that clicked, it took time for it to click. That's when I just allowed myself to express the anger instead of shifting my emotions out of anger. Like, I would feel angry, but I would also tell myself, Fritz, don't get angry. Like just chill. Like, you don't need to be angry about this. Instead of saying that, I actually stopped saying that. And instead I just allowed myself to get pissed off. I allowed myself to get angry, and validated myself with the anger, right? So when I would feel angry, I would tell myself, like, I'm fucking pissed off right now because of this. And really and truly, that was what changed the game. Something as simple as that just changed the game. Being able to just tell myself that I'm freaking pissed off because of this, and giving myself the validation and say, well, it's valid for you to be angry because of this, and just allowed myself to feel it and allow it to shift. That was a big game changer, right? That eczema in my skin went away. Oh, crazy, right? And I didn't feel as much anger. I didn't feel as much anger in my body. There was less tenseness in my muscles. Like, I could feel a big difference with like my shoulders. Like, I think I just clench, and my upper body just clenches when I'm angry, and when I keep it in, it gets very stiff. There's a lot more movement and flowiness now in my upper body because I'm allowing myself to use it as an outlet. And right at this present moment, yoga is something that is a great outlet for me to release all the anger. And so um, finding a way to express anger healthily was a big thing too. And to me, listening to music that expressed how I feel, especially angry type of music, right? It's quite funny because when I was in my late teens, I loved emo music, like that screamo music. And I think that was like an outlet that I just unconsciously knew to do back then, that really helped. And so going back to that now, going back to the things that helped, also allowed for me to express it in a more healthy way that is not really directing it to myself, but just allowing it to release in a healthy manner, not towards someone else, right? um and so yeah, just doing that, knowing where I associated anger as a thing that I didn't want to do, by looking at where I unconsciously just associated anger, was very important. And as well as looking for ways to express anger that was healthy for me. And definitely going to go through those those places where you just like smash plates. That'll happen one day. That's going to be one thing that I might do with friends too, to really help me express it more one day. I think it'll be a fun time. And so being able to do that, finding an outlet, also through music, through yoga, just as simple as like shaking it off, right? And allowing that really strong emotion for me to pass, and not judging it, and not beating myself up for feeling it, and validating myself. all of these things have helped. And so even if you're someone who is not angry, right, or doesn't resonate with anger, maybe you resonate with a different emotion. Maybe it's anxiety, right? Maybe it's sadness that you have associated with yourself with. Take a look at that. Take a look at what associations you've had in your mind regarding the sadness and why it's present in your life, and what have you noticed in your past that were patterns that you have observed from someone else, maybe while growing up, maybe during a most influential time in your life, maybe your teens as well, right? Or what's your experience like with work? Work is where we go to, right? A third of the time during the week as well. So where have you learned these patterns? And because once you can pinpoint those associations, it's definitely easier if we have someone helping us point it out, because we all have blind spots, right? And who knows how to get to the root cause and unconscious reason for it. That is really, really helpful. So doing all of these things holistically, it's not just one thing, right? It's one small thing on top of the other that really creates massive transformations. And now when I feel anger, it's I no longer keep it in my body. I allow it to shift. I allow it to pass. I'm getting very familiar with it. There is no shame in feeling angry now. And funny enough, when I was in angry states, I've been able to accomplish a lot of things with it. I think it's become a superpower, using anger as a means to accomplish what I want, obviously without harming myself or anyone else. It's not like that, but just using that emotion as fuel, as passion to get to where I want to be. That's something that I'm experimenting with, but sharing this transformation with you today to hopefully help you. Let me know if it does. Comment below, and I will see you soon.